Recording in Hello, and welcome to our first webinar series. So, to kick off our November webinar, we're going to be talking about fast fashion. And on Saturdays, we're going to have more of like serious topics. And then on Sundays, we're going to be having more of like fun, engaging topics. So, to start off, we're going to be talking about fast fashion. And so, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So, like I said, we're going to be kicking off our first series with the fast fashion industry. So, what is fast fashion? So, we're using fast fashion when we're talking about the term fast fashion, when we're talking about clothing designs that are moving from the catwalk to being in stores very quickly. And so, in other words, there's such a quick turnaround from the design to seeing it in stores. And because of this very quick production, we see it happen in about 2 weeks, in as little as 2 weeks. And this allows consumers to keep up with trends. And this is what contributes to a mass consumption of clothing. And so this is really marketed towards 18 to 24-year-olds because of the cost. It's very affordable to them and because of the low prices. However, the main problem with this that this causes is that the quick turnaround is a danger to both workers in the industry and in factories and the environment. So we're going to take a look at an overview of the industry. So some quick facts is that there are 75 million workers worldwide in fast fashion factories. And then in these factories, we see about less than 2% of them make a living wage. And then we also see 92 million tons of clothing found in landfills each year. So we're going to take a look at the workers' first, and we're going to take a look at their life inside of these factories. And so where is this happening? This is happening in countries that tend to have cheap labor, where there's not as many laws or practices and safety regulations to keep them safe within these factories. And so you see this happening in countries such as India, Cambodia, Turkey, Vietnam, and Indonesia, which are known for having cheap labor, and then also the conditions in factories not being great. And so the reason why this cheap labor is such an important factor in the fast fashion industry is that cheap labor equals cheap clothing. But the problem is that these workers are paid less than a living wage. And this we see in the low prices of clothing, because when the workers are paid as much, it allows brands to lower their prices for clothing so more people will buy them. And as I mentioned earlier, the working conditions in these factories are not good. So you see problems such as no ventilation, breathing in toxic substances, accidental fires, injuries, and disease, both long and short-term diseases, due to the fact that workers are going into these factories every day and they are going into these conditions where they're breathing in toxic substances every single day, causing a lot of long-term diseases. And then there's also verbal and physical abuse that we see happening in these factories. And also we see workers dying in these factories as well due to poor equipment and little to no safety regulations. And we also see the emergence of like this cycle of, we see workers not being able to leave because they make less than a living wage. So any wage they do receive go immediately to basic necessities, and savings not really an option for them. And so they can't really seek out other jobs because they're also afraid of losing the current one they have due to the no job security that they have. As I said, they face verbal and physical abuse, and there's not a lot of promise for them that the job they have, they're going to be able to keep this. And so they're forced to keep the job to keep some form of income. And that income, as I said, they can't really save it up in order to leave the job that they have. And not only do we see a major effect of the industry on workers, we also see it on the environment as well. So next, we're going to take a look at how fast fashion contributes to pollution. So with textile waste, we see one of the major contributors to waste in landfills with 92 million tons added each year. And so this value comes up to about 400 billion USD. And you can, of course, take that number and convert it to the currency where you are. But this is such a major contributor and also a waste of money as well. And we see with some things in landfills, they're able to decompose, but with brands that using fast fashion, as I said, they're very cheap and they're using materials such as polyester, nylon, and acrylic. And these are low cost materials that they're able to use. And we see this contributing to lower prices. But the main problem with these materials is that they take hundreds of years to decompose. These are materials that aren't decomposing in our landfills. And so we see with that 92 million tons, it's accumulating more and more of these polyester, nylon, and acrylic fabrics. And so from the time that a piece of clothing might be bought, it's centuries later that we see it finally breaking down in these landfills. And of course, as we know, landfills are one of the growing landfills are one of the major contributors to pollution as well. We also see pollution arising from the fast fashion industry due to the energy they're using to make clothes. And so this energy is used for heating water and cleaning fabric. But we also see that the main source of all this energy that they're using comes from fossil fuels, which is contributing to our carbon emissions. And then we see it in global warming as that CO2 is getting trapped in the atmosphere. And so we know that major industries we see driving cars or even any sort of production process and the fast fashion industry are all contributing to these major CO2 emissions and contributing to global warming. So I know hearing all of this can be like, well, what can I do? This is such a major industry. The problem with this industry is that it's creating a cycle. It's using cheap labor and these workers not being able to leave. And then we see that being reflected in low prices. And many people, this is the clothing that they can afford. And so this is not meant to bash people who are buying from fast fashion brands, but instead meant to bring awareness. So we can explore alternative pathways to supporting fast fashion. And so one of the ways that we can do that is supporting ethical fashion brands that don't use cheap labor and use more sustainable clothing options or sustainable fabrics. So one of these brands is the Slow Factory. And so the Slow Factory is dedicated to using sustainable materials to build their clothes, but they're also dedicating to raising awareness as well. Another way we can stop throwing away clothes as much is you can recycle and repurpose old clothes. And so by doing this, we're not automatically contributing to that landfill waste, but instead we're finding new uses for materials. I have scrunchies that are made out of denim fabric that I've used for years, and by using old jeans or any old pants or clothing, I'm able to repurpose these items instead of throwing them away. Another way we can also lower landfill waste is donating old clothes. And so when we donate clothes, it's not ending up in the landfills right away, but instead it's being used by other people. And so instead of just going out and buying new clothes or by buying new clothes and that have just been put out into the market, we're buying old clothes and keeping them out of landfills. And the same way with recycling, repurposing clothes, we're keeping them out of the landfills and finding more ways to use them. And also, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes sustainable fashion brands isn't an option for everybody in order to give money towards those because they can be more expensive, but they do last longer. But another way to direct money is to donate towards organizations that are designed to help workers in those fast fashion factories. Organizations like the Vision Zero Fund that are dedicating to providing aid towards those workers or dedicated towards shaping the labor practices in countries. And so you'll see organizations that are working with the International Labor Organization in an effort to help change those safety regulations and make those conditions in factories livable and less dangerous. And of course, the main way we can all help is help spread awareness. The more people that know about fast fashion and know about the industry, we can see more people lean towards donating clothes and repurposing them. That way, we don't see them ending up in landfills, and we help raise awareness worldwide for this. And we can, as we raise awareness, we can start to influence policy and influence change in those countries that don't have those labor regulations in fast fashion factories. And so the main point I want to end this presentation on and end this webinar on is that fast fashion brands, buying from them, you shouldn't for people where fast fashion is all they can afford, this is not meant to target those, but instead we're trying to push for improvements in for workers in the factories and for the environment. And so this is really meant to be a topic to raise awareness and trying to apply those small practices into our daily lives. Anyway, thank you for listening to our first webinar, and I hope you're able to learn and able to more and more about what the fast fashion industry is. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a great day.